I think that this is about something that's really life-giving for girls in a world that really takes life away from them in all kinds of ways. And so I see horse craziness as a place girls push back and demand, life and joy and freedom for themselves in a world that often restricts those things.
One of your contentions in Horse Crazy is the girls' experience of riding horses and their love of horses has a political dimension. In what ways?
Well, I mean a number of things. So I mean that there are implications in the very traditional sense of mainstream political conversations. I think there are implications in that way, but I also mean political in the more open sense of all things, involve power in society, and this does too. And so in the latter, I am exploring the ways in which girls build a world for themselves that refuses heteronormativity, refuses that they be boy crazy, refuses all the things that go with boy craziness, like a particular appearance or, the obsession with thinness, and that the demand that boys become the thing they think and live and talk about over their relationships with other girls, right? Over their relationships with their mothers, over these other central important relationships. This is something that's people know now, right? That girls at a certain point become competitive with each other and begin to orient their selfhood towards the attraction of boys. And there's, a literature on that, and there's all kinds of reasons why girls do that go beyond an essentialism of heterosexuality, which many of us, obviously critique. Girls, like any human, need to survive in the world, and so they're looking, to some extent, girls and women look towards boys and men because that's where the power is. But I think that this is an opportunity for girls to refuse that for a little while, or perhaps even in some cases a long while, and that is girls who become horse crazy are horse crazy often and largely instead of being boy crazy. They dream about, they obsess about, they think about, they give their time and their money and their fantasies and their play and their reading to horses. And horses don't take away from girls in the way that I think a traditional heteronormativity does. Horses, are a place where girls, in fact, instead of needing to be petite and thin and frail, girls need to be strong and tough. Instead of dealing with things that are, traditionally understood to be girlish, like makeup or dolls or clothing and being obsessed with fashion, with horses, girls need to be strong and dealing with things like manure. Girls, handle horses. They get stepped on. They get bumped over. They get, thrown. They have to be brave.
Certainly, given economic, given geographic changes since you came of age, many girls would not have the relationship with a living, breathing horse. And yet, you certainly point to a lot of literature, movies, television series that would allow them to enter the world of horses, horse culture, and to develop a love and a passion of horses. I'm wondering how you perceive that exposure to horse craziness, similar to, as well as obviously different from, an actual relationship with a horse.
Right. Now, that's a great question. I actually would say that on the one hand, it's probably harder for most girls to own a horse and have that kind of close contact with a horse that belongs literally to them. But horses are coming back as domestic pleasure animals in the United States. So I think what happens is that girls may not be able to have their own horse, which I had. And my family, my mom, I was raised by a single mother. She didn't have any money. We often were literally poor economically. I could still have a horse because it was very cheap. But what girls do is they gain access, and this is, again, predominantly white girls, and I think often middle and working class girls, gain access to horses by hanging around barns and gradually kind of eke their way into the barn culture where they actually start helping out. So it's a whole phenomenon. They're called barn rats or stable girls, and they basically give free labor in exchange for time with horses. So the labor, the stable gives them not only time with the horse, but riding lessons. So that's kind of an interesting phenomena in a way that girls have been very savvy about making room for themselves inside of the horse world. And my sense is that even the fantasies that girls have are fantasies that are, relatively empowering, at least compared to, a more normative princess fantasy. Like this woman talked about how she and her friends would have horses and they would go off into the mountains and the story would be about them, facing danger on the mountains. But she herself even said she wasn't very princessy. That wasn't a game she played. But I think if someone were to do a quantitative study and actually kind of study girls' fantasies, my sense from my limited qualitative study is that even the fantasy play of girls who are horse crazy is empowering in a way that more normative fantasy play is not.
You've been listening to author and scholar Jean Halley talk about her new book, Horse Crazy: Girls and the Lives of Horses.